What's up, everybody? This is the Ike Inspirations podcast, and today I have a great guest named Daniel Jones, and I'm on a mission to inspire as many people as I can, and I'm excited to have Daniel on because I think he's an interesting character. He has autism and ADHD, and I don't really talk about it much on my podcast, but I too have ADHD, so I thought it would make for an interesting conversation, and would like to learn more about what it's like to live with those conditions. So, yeah, Dan, can you do us the favor of introducing yourself to the audience and who you are?
What up? Yes, straight up, man. Thank you so much for inviting me on, Ike. It's really awesome, and I love inspiring people, and I love getting people psyched about life. So, my name is Dan Jones, but like my online name is The Aspie World, and what I do is I upload, like, I'm one of the biggest, if not the biggest, autism social media influencer who's dedicated just autism content uploading right across all social media platforms. I've done this since 2017 consistently. It's my full-time gig. I love it. And the biggest thing that I can take away from it is that I get to help people daily. Nothing fills my soul more than the ability to just go, oh man, I helped somebody. And I love that, right? But I love helping many, many people. Yeah. Not just one, like many.
Awesome, man. Yeah. I know with the power of YouTube and social media, you can reach out. You can reach it to so many people, man. So yeah, I wanna get into it, man, and first talk to you. Ask you about what do you feel like are the common misconceptions about having autism and ADHD? You know?
Yeah, like one of the biggest misconceptions, and I think this kind of like really is the one that kind of bugs me the most. And I think it's not always down to like ignorance of people, but sometimes just down to the fact that a lot of people just don't know, and we can't hold them to it. Is that a lot of people don't know anything about it. So when you say, oh, I've got ADHD, they'll either think, hey, only kids have ADHD, or if I say, yeah, I've got autism, they'll say, oh, you don't look autistic. And they don't mean it insultingly. What they mean is that, like, hey, my friend Tom, his kid's autistic and she doesn't speak and wears diapers and she's like 18. So it's kind of like, how they see it, right? From like movies and stuff, it has really kind of like given a lot of misconceptions, because you see autism and it's always the most profound version of that issue or that kind of like condition that you will see on the TV or on news or in kind of movies, because of course it's the more extreme that is the most shocking, right?
Yeah.
So when Elon Musk builds a spaceship and like puts it into orbit and then it says he's going to build a spaceship to take people to Mars, nobody's like, oh, shockingly autistic. Nobody. But when you see somebody who can't communicate without an iPad, it's shocking, right?
Yeah.
So there's two kind of like there's two kind of versions of autism, or there's two kind of like areas of the spectrum that you can look at. You can say like there's like people with what they used to call classic autism, which is autism with high support needs. And then you have autism with low support needs. And I have lower support needs than some of my friends who can't speak. And that's the biggest misconception. People think that everyone who has autism or is the same, or everyone who's ADHD can't be ADHD because only kids have ADHD.
Yeah, no, with autism, I feel like there's almost this correlation or conception that, oh, you have autism, so you might be a little slow, or you're either a little slow or you're just super smart. Like I don't, and I've come across, I've heard of stories of autistic people with like all types of unique, weird talents. I don't know, has that been your experience? What does autism look like for you?
Yeah, it's a good question, dude, and you're absolutely bang on the money. So, autism has it impacts people in very different ways. It has extreme common characteristics, hence the diagnostic criteria. But then it also has very different ways in which it presents itself, where someone could be, they could be really good at music or maths or art or something, and it does happen. And it's kind of like, think about it like this: if you are if you're a wheelchair user and the only workouts you can do are upper body workouts, you're going to be a beast at the upper body, right? You're going to be like He-Man, right? Which is dope. I love seeing like the Paralympians when they're doing like the sports activities with the wheelchair users. It's dope. But like, think about it like this: if your brain is not an autistic brain is unable to keep up with the social interaction and the communication skills of a typical person, then you're going to excel in an area that they don't, right? Kind of like the upper body thing, right? So they're gonna be good at something. So if they like something that becomes, and there's a second part to this, what I'll get to in a second. If they like something that becomes a special interest, then they're just going to go ham on it, right? And when you go ham on it, you're going to become an expert at it, right? And so you're going to know a lot about it and be good at it. So it's kind of like the reason autistic individuals have a field of special interest is because we're all dopamine hungry, right? And you know, from being ADHD, right? We're all searching for dopamine constantly, and we get dopamine from the things that bring us the most joy. And the things that bring us the most joy can be the most bizarre thing. It could be a rock collection. It could be taking pictures of mattresses. Like, it could be the most weirdest things. Yeah. But you are going to be the best at that because that's the thing that A, gives you dopamine, and B, it's a thing you know how to do versus going out and socializing. We don't do those things. We can't do those things sometimes, right? So this is why it's kind of like, so it's the upper body strength example that I was telling you about. So that's kind of like, that's why. But there's a second part to it, right? And this is fascinating. So there's a condition called savant syndrome, which isn't kind of like an official diagnosis, but it's kind of like the label they put to people who are intellectually or global learning delay, and they may have some intellectual disabilities, but they are incredibly genius in certain areas. Like, there's only a handful of them in the world, right? So there's only a handful of dudes that have this. One is like, there's a young guy in the UK, he's got like an eidetic memory. Like, he flew around London in a helicopter.
How many people have it?
About 4 or 5.
Oh, okay.
But it comes with, so if they are a savant, they are also autistic, right? So people will see that and be like, oh, that's autism in its like highest form, which is what the movie Rain Man is about. Have you seen that movie, Rain Man?
No, I've heard of it though.
Yeah. So basically, like, it's Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman, and they're brothers. But Dustin Hoffman is a savant, right? So he has like global learning delay, intellectual disability, but he's ASAP. He's got an eidetic memory, so he can count cards. So they go to Vegas and they like rig it and stuff, and they win loads of money. But anyway, because of that, in the movie, Tom Cruise says the words like, F this autism BS and all this stuff, because he doesn't know, because it's really early, it's like in the 80s where they don't know what's going on. And so everyone thinks, oh, autism, it's that, So again, it's another misconception that autistic people always have to excel in an area. They will have a lot of knowledge in an area and they will be good at something. But that is why. It's not because like, it's not saying that all autistic people are maths geniuses. Like, that's not the case, right? That's never going to be the case. But we do have more of an analytical brain that will kind of analyze things and problem solve algorithmically rather than impulsively. Which is
I got it, man. And it's interesting, man, because I know with you received a late diagnosis of autism and ADHD, and for me, similarly, I've also received a late diagnosis of ADHD. I just figured out I had it a year ago. And it's kind of like, I don't know why I'm just figuring this out. I mean, I've always had symptoms of it. When I went to high school and school, I was always testing in quieter areas. And they always wanted me. I always easily got distracted. And even in college, I had to take exams in like a quiet room. But I never actually received actual diagnosis. I was just like, oh, like I have to be in a quiet room because I get distracted easily. Why do you feel like it takes such a long time for people to get diagnosed with ADHD?
You know what? It's not okay. So the lengthy process. There's a lot of people right now who are undiagnosed ADHD or undiagnosed autism who are getting later diagnosed, right? Like you and I. And the reason being, and there's kind of two possible variables. One variable is that the sheer age of the person doesn't account for the time when okay, so say it's 2025, right? And anybody who's like 3 years old now will get diagnosed pretty promptly, right? But when I was 3, it was like 1989 or something, right? So like there was nobody didn't knew back then. So by the time it came in as a standard, I was in my 20s. So so we missed out on the wave of where it would be caught initially. So now they're trying to play catch up, right? That's one way. And then the other one is that because they're playing catch up, there's an incredible volume of people, right? Like ridiculous amount of people who are autistic or ADHD who they're trying to get through. They got a list. They're like, person 6,469. Okay, now you're up for your diagnosis. It's like it only took you 5-6 years to get down the list. So they know this, but they haven't got the capacity, the infrastructure to implement it, or even look, or even scan and search.
Yeah, and another thing too is kind of weird. Like if you have ADHD or autism or just some type of neural condition, you don't know what's not normal. You don't know, like, oh, like I didn't know what's normal. To be honest, once I got into a relationship, my first relationship, my girlfriend, my ex, she started calling me out, doing all types of weird things. She's like, "Oh my gosh, why are you constantly looking at this person?" Or like, "Why did your eyes get turned off when you have certain conversations you're not interested in?" Like, and I, for me, none of this was a big deal, but it really pissed her off. So I was like, "All right, let me see what's going on." And she said, "You might have ADHD or something." So it actually prompted me to think about it. And it wasn't the first time someone actually said I might have it. So I was like, all right, this is kind of becoming a reoccurring theme. Let me just go check it out. But if it wasn't for that experience, I don't know if I ever would have even thought about it, Yeah.
I think it's like, like there will be a catalytic or a triggering moment like that, right? Where someone will be like, "Hey, you're kind of weird, right?" And then like, like, "Oh, thanks." And like, no, but like super weird, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then I'm like, "Yeah, I know I'm weird, but like, what are you trying to say?" And so there will be kind of like that glass shatter moment. And I think sometimes that happens because what we tend to do, and this goes for a lot of people on the autism spectrum or with ADHD, or just neurodiverse people in general, urgent, sorry, they will create like a comfort bubble of things that they can do around, right? So like, hey, it's kind of like, it's like a workaround. Hey, I don't like busy places, so I do all my shopping on Amazon, like I don't go to the mall because, and that's a workaround. So for years you can hide in the shadows and nobody would know, right? Because you make workarounds. Yeah.
No, and I love exactly what you're saying. I was actually watching this video about this, and I was trying to learn, like, why wasn't this a problem, or why didn't I see a psychiatrist? And also, like, in school, like because I did relatively well in school, there was no need to question, hey, is there something wrong with you or whatnot? And I guess it never actually became a problem. But I wouldn't necessarily, once I got the ADHD diagnosis, to be honest, for me personally, nothing much changed. I'm still Ike. I still have my life, but it made me a lot more aware of my tendencies. And it made me like, one thing that I have like this weird social awkward tendency where if I'm talking to you and after a couple of seconds, if I'm not interested in the conversation, I would just like turn away. Like, I'm still listening to you. I'm just kind of like, and I know it's such a bad habit, so I'm a lot more aware of it, and I try to do better eye contact. But if something just bores me, I'm just gonna like, I just do it subconsciously. I'm just like looking away, like, oh, like this is not, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if you can relate. Like, I do.
I have a hack for this because I find this. I find this when I'm trying to work. If I'm sitting down, I'm doing a piece of work, like I'm editing a video, I'm like, yeah, I'm off doing something else. And I'll pick the guitar up and I'm doing something. I'm like, dang it. So there's a thing for this. I found this when you're doing something that's new, right? Because when you're doing something you're kind of like, say you're playing a game that you play all the time, you can concentrate on the game.
Yes.
But if it's a new game, it's easy to get distracted and go off, right? Because you're uncomfortable with it. So this is what I do. And this is a hack that I tried and tested and it works really well. I'll have an iPad playing Fight Club, which is my favorite movie, right? So I'll play Fight Club and I'll just have it on with the volume right down. So if my mind starts wandering, I'm like, oh, Fight Club. Hey, I've seen this before. Okay, I'm focusing now. Back to it. And it works. It kind of soothes the mind and then it makes you go back into focus.
Do you know what's crazy, man? You're talking about, your Fight Club for me is cartoons. Right behind this podcast, I have cartoons and anime. Right?
My God.
So I can literally, I don't know. It's like weird. I need to like be somewhat stimulated. If I wasn't talking to you, I'd be listening to a bunch of music and like things. But I have cartoons.
It's to keep the chatter at bay, right?
Yeah.
It's like you've got another Ike that's just wanting to. Dude, what are you watching? Like, hit me.
Naruto. Naruto.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you're a Naruto fan.
Yeah. So have you watched Sword Art Online?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I do. I love that anime. I watched that. Yeah.
Dude, I tell you what. What about Full Metal Alchemist?
Yeah. I put that on sometimes in the background too. Yeah.
Dude, it's fire.
Yeah.
I want to get more into kind of like Death Note and stuff like that. Like some of the more creepy ones. But like,
Death Note is the anime that got me into like anime in general. Like once I watched Death Note, I'm like, what is this? This is so cool. Like I gotta go start like getting obsessed with the anime world. So.
Do you know what mine was? Do you know what my entry level was? Pokemon.
What was it? Pokemon?
Oh yeah. Anime, right?
I love.
People forget it's anime.
Yeah, I love Pokemon. I never identified it as anime, so it didn't make me start like. I just looked at it. Oh, this is like a cool, like fun cartoon, but I never identified it as anime.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, but yeah, dude, I love it, dude. I love it. I love it. No,
man, it's just funny, man. Like, it's funny because with our conditions, we have this need to be overstimulated. I don't even know if we want to call it overstimulated, but we need constant stimulation.
Yes.
What do you think about that? And how do you feel about that? Are you always stimulating? What are you doing to stimulate yourself? Is it a good or a bad thing? Because I do feel like it's kind of weird because people will be like, oh, you're constantly on social media, always on your screen. Like, what do you feel about that? You know?
So it's droplets of dopamine, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not that it's not like we're addicted to just doom scrolling. What we're actually doing is topping up our dopamine levels so that we don't hit flatline. Because I see it like this. I'm always learning. So I always have to have something on the go. Like I'm in the middle of watching a video, it's teaching me something about something, right? And so if I wasn't doing that, my mental health would hit rock bottom and I'd be like depressed out of my skull. I'd be like, oh, I have no motivation. I wouldn't be able to move. So it's not that we're overstimulated. It's that we're charging constantly on dopamine, you know, we're getting that dopamine hit. But there is a downside to this. And this is what happens to a lot of ADHD, and I'd say a lot of ADHD autistics, or we call ADHD and ADHD kids, right? Is that you could be addicted to weed, you could get addicted to alcohol, you get addicted to sex, you get addicted to pornography, like gambling. And those, because what happens is those things are simple, straight away dopamine fixes. Right? And that becomes a slippery slope. And that kind of personality, we're wanting that constant dopamine, right? So you can get addicted to stuff. So I advocate against, you know, young men watching pornography. I advocate against drinking alcohol. I advocate against, smoking in general. Not marijuana. I think THC has its really good values in medicinal purposes. But I avoid things that are going to kind of take you out of the realm of reality, right? If it takes you away from that, then you're not actually doing life, right? And I think that people with ADHD and autism need to do life. And so I advocate for that. So I haven't drank any alcohol for 17 years this year.
Awesome, man.
I don't watch any porn. I don't do anything porn related.
Man.
And I think that's the best way to go. And I never gamble. I don't even buy scratch cards, dude. I don't even, like, if somebody buys me a scratch card as like a gift, I get somebody else to scratch it off because I can't do it. It's not about me. I'm like, no way. And I've never had a problem with these things. It's just that to me, it's like I know.
Your self-awareness.
We have, that's it. And you saying about getting the ADHD diagnosis, like when you had it, you were a bit more like, oh, okay, I know myself a little bit more now. Yeah. And it is that. It's because for years you're stumbling around in the dark thinking like, oh man, I'm so weird.
Yes.
Like, yeah, right.
Yeah, and I've always thought that, but I couldn't really put the pieces together. Not like I'm special or something. I'm not gonna lie. Always in the back of my head, I'm like, there's something off. I just don't know. The way I do things is just a little bit unconventional. And I'm curious to hear about your reaction to it. I want to share a quick story I had.
Please.
So I figured out I had ADHD about 1.5 years ago. And for me, I went into the I got tested, and the way I got tested was they made me do this thing. I forgot the name of the test, but it was the hardest. Dude, so to give you a background, I'm a pharmacist, and I went through pharmacy school. So
I'm a chemist, dude. I have a degree in chemistry.
Oh, okay, man. Well, crazy, man. I had no idea. So I took multiple exams, bro. Yeah. They made me do this exam where all you do is look at the screen and it blinks red. It blinks a red dot, and all you have to do is just click it. It was the hardest thing in my whole life. Anytime the red dot comes up, you just gotta click it. I swear, I know it sounds so simple. It was like the hardest thing in my life, and I just couldn't do it. And so after the test, I got tested 92 out of 100, like in terms of my ADHD. So I was like, oh, you got ADHD, blah blah blah. And then my psychiatrist who gave me the diagnosis was basically like, hey man, so you have ADHD. Do you want any medications? Like, I know you must be shocked, like, you know, pretty much trying to make it seem like there's something incredibly wrong with me. I never looked at it. I was like, no, I'm not interested in Adderall. By the way, I'm a pharmacist, so I understand what it does and what it doesn't. And also, I just don't need it. And then he got really mad. He's like, so why are you here? Like, what's the point? Like, why did you come here? I was like, oh, I just wanted to know if I had it or not. That's all. He's like, then he got really mad. He's like, get out of here, man. Like, and then it was kind of weird. I'm like, why do you care so much that I have that? I just wanted the self-awareness to be like, oh, okay, so this is why I do that and that. Like, I just want to better understand it myself. He couldn't understand that. But so all of that to say, when you figured out that you got the diagnosis, what was your reaction? Were you like, oh damn, this explains so much about me? Were you sad? Were you shocked? Like, you know, what was your reaction to it?
You know, it's interesting. Getting an autism diagnosis or an ADHD diagnosis is like that kind of moment of you feel heard and validated, right? So no longer you like, oh, I'm a total freak. You're like, hey, there's actually an explanation for these things. And what that does, it's something quite magical. You probably didn't even realize is that it gives you instant confidence, because it gives you this kind of self-gratitude. But, oh, I'm actually thankful for who I am because I know who I am now, right? And that gives you confidence. And when you have confidence, you pretty much can take on anything. I could flip a table over. I'm like, let's go. So that is what the diagnosis did for me. But it also, that when it starts setting in, like you have this kind of realization, you're like, oh my goodness, like there's so much I need to learn about myself now to really understand what I've been doing all these years and what it means, right? And that is the beauty of it. And I think that's why the diagnosis is super important. But, you know, I was never really sad. I think the only thing I got that was sad is that, like, I had a disconnected kind of relationship with my parents around about this time. And my family, we were arguing. Because we were like grown adults. We were all living in one house, right? Before I moved out, as well as in college and stuff. And so when I said to my dad, hey, I've got autism, he's like, I don't, you know, I was like, oh, I've got autism diagnosis. He's like, well, don't expect me to treat you any differently. And I'm like, okay, like, what the heck? Like, so I was, you know, so it was kind of like, okay, I mean, like, what the hell? And then my brother was like, yeah, I already know. I'm like, what? So, like, nobody cared. Like, it seemed like
nobody cared.
Right?
Yeah,
When I told my, excuse me, when I told my best friends, they were just like, it's obvious. I was like, oh, well, okay. And they were just cool about it. My friends were like cool about it. It was like, you know, like the experience I get that, you know, if you have really good friends and say you're a gay person and you have really good friends and you come out as being gay, right? And they're like, yeah, it's cool. It makes no difference, right? Yeah. That's what my friends were like when I was like, oh, I have this diagnosis of autism. And they're like, yeah, it's obvious you're autistic, right? And nobody cares. Like, you're good with this, like, you know? So that was kind of cool. So it was kind of like a mixed review. And I get it, you know?
No. That when I told my family and friends, similar reactions. Because at the end of the day, I think if you have good friends and family, they like you for who you are. So it's not like anything is changing. Like, oh, you're still. No. It's not like your life. You're still the same. Like Dan or I. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you are you, right? It It just adds a level of understanding or a level of clarity to why you may act a certain way. And I tell you something else that it does for a lot of people is that rather than people like parents. Especially rather than them being like, oh, my 26-year-old such a weird, or like he's lazy, he needs to go out and get a job or get a girlfriend or go out and get it, you know, do something social. But now they're like, oh I get it, right? Yeah. So it's like they have a little bit more like patience with that scenario. And I think that's quite a beautiful thing. And I don't hold the parents like, you know, I don't want to punch everyone's mum in the face. Like what I'm saying is that like I don't hold them accountable for it because they didn't know as much as the kid didn't know, right? So we're all learning. It's a big learning process, and we're all just like fumbling about trying to figure out this whole thing.
Yeah, and it's interesting, man, because I mean, I'm getting really excited because everything you're saying about ADHD and like the life of it, like internally, like I can relate to everything, especially when you said how. Especially when you mentioned how, like, once you get ADHD, once you learn about your diagnosis, like you learn so much about yourself, and hence you get a lot of value. As soon as I learned ADHD, I instantly forgave myself for constantly switching activities. Like I always used to kind of bash myself, and I'm like, okay, I gotta focus on one thing and just really be really good at that. And I didn't. And if I switched to another activity like DJing, podcasting, or something, then I'm like, why did you do that? Like I'll just do negative self-talk. Like you're supposed to be great at one thing, and like do that.
You give yourself a hard time, right?
Exactly. I used to give myself a hard time for switching jobs, for switching YouTube channels, switching this. But now, like once I have ADHD, I'm like, this is a part of who I am, and I just need a bunch of different projects to keep my mind stimulated and engaged with life. You know, did you like recognize that in yourself to an extent?
Yeah, always. I always said to myself, like, oh, I'm a weirdo, or like I'm always like, oh, what's wrong with me? You know, what's wrong with me? I'd always say that, right? And then it's like, and then I realized it's not nothing wrong with me. It's just how I am. You know what I mean? It's like it's you know, it's what it is. And so and you know, it was actually a friend of mine. She was her son had a diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome. She was one of the ones who kind of, you know, was there when I first got my diagnosis. And so she was always like, hey, stop beating yourself up, you know, like don't exactly what we're saying, like stop giving yourself a hard time about it and start kind of like realizing that, hey, that's you. And that's kind of like a beautiful thing at the end of the day. It's not sounding too kind of weird, right? But it's like, it is a beautiful thing because it is who you are. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I've learned since the diagnosis to give myself less of a hard time when it comes to things that I would be like, oh man, you know, like, because I'm a dad as well, so I have 2 kids, and sometimes I'm not always the best dad because I have sensory overload, right? And then like, and I'm always like, and it makes you feel awful because you're like, oh man, I shouldn't have like freaked out in front of my kids. I want them to see my dad, their dad as being a stable Dayton. They want their dad to be this person they can rely on and come to and be okay. And so some of those things are kind of like, oh, and so you do feel this level of guilt sometimes. You're like, oh shoot, but then you have to remember, like, I have a neurological disorder. Like, I wouldn't expect a wheelchair user to beat themselves up over the fact that they can't play soccer typically with their kid. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't, because they have a disability typically that they can't do those things. And so the same, like, I have a disability that doesn't allow me to do those things. And it is hard. It's hard going because you seem, such a normal person, right? You seem a typical average person. But then, when you start like going into those layers, you realize like, oh, there's a lot going on here. But then, but your kids don't see it like that, And so it is difficult. But I'm writing a book about this right now, actually.
Okay. What's the name of the book?
The book is called Autism for Autistic Parents. And I've got a book, so I've got 2 books out. But my first autism book is called Autism for Adults, right, which is out right now. Yeah, so you can get that on like Penguin and Hay House. But I'm just I've already got a couple of deals. Next book. Yeah, but I'm just signing up. I think I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna sign up with an agency just to kind of shop around and get the best protection for me, because I've got a lawyer, or a literacy lawyer, but there's different type of literacy agent. So anyway, so the book Autism for Autistic Parents is all about like parents who have autism, regardless if the kid's autistic or not. Like, oh my god, there's so much going on. And like they like my eldest, I have 2 boys. My eldest is 6, he'll be 7 in August, and my youngest is 2 in August. Like, their birthdays are 2 days apart. And there is so much like I'm learning every day, but there's so much I've learned from not being a parent to being 6 years in, right, as an autistic parent. And that goes, and also with breakup. Like me and the mum aren't together. We live in different houses. Like the whole thing, like it's so like there's so much so the book goes through all of those different scenarios and different things and gives practical guidance advice about how it can help that person. Because I want to help as many people as possible. And I want to say this, like, a lot of people, they say like, oh, if I just reach one person, I've done my job and I'm happy. That's BS to me, dude. I'm like that is you're doing a terrible job. Like, I'm like, I need to reach 6 million people. I don't know. And if I don't reach 6 million people, I'm not doing my job properly. I'm like this. I'm like over deliver, overachieve, over commit. Like, what are you doing, man? You know why? There's so many people who need help, right? We need to hit those people hard, man. And it's like, the more we can do, the more people we can reach, the better our mission is becoming, and the better the world will be. So don't settle, dude. I put this on my status today. I put a status out on my WhatsApp. I was like, never settle. Don't settle. Settling's BS, dude. Like, get out there. Like, I always say, it's like, I believe I'm on a mission from God, right? And like, I feel like God has given me like this, like a purpose, like to do this thing, right?
Yes.
I pray to God every night, and I always say this. I pray to God about it. I say, thanks God for all the things that you're teaching me, even when it's a bad thing, right? I'm thankful for the negative things that God gives, because it's a lesson to be learned, right? Because in school we learn and we take a test, but in life God tests you and then you learn, right? And that's how it is.
Man, dude, I love this. First of all, man, I'm so glad that you're a Christian, God parent, man. I am too. And I don't pray for things to get easier. I pray for me to get stronger so that things feel lighter. And you know what I'm saying? And so, dude, I love everything you're saying, man. And another thing I can tell, you have ADHD because you do this too. When you get really excited, you talk about another topic, then you get off tangent and to kind of talk about a side story, and then you say, oh, well, that's not beside the point, and then you get back to the story. I do that all the time too. If I get really excited about something, or sometimes I might weeble dabble like 2 or 3 side stories to get back. You do that too, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I recognize myself in you when you do that, and I completely understand. You're just excited about whatever you're talking about.
We're on a side mission together. Like, it's like the main quest is here. We're on a side mission, bro. It's like we're collecting coins. And I get that. But no, it's true. Like a lot of people say to me, like, oh, like, why do you pray? I said, when you start to communicate with the God, whatever you want to call it, if you want to call it God, Jehovah, Allah, Buddha, like whatever you want to call the person you communicate with, or the being that you communicate with, the creator of the universe, when you allow the dialogue and that communication to happen, the easier life becomes.
Amen.
Because you like, all you have to look, the God in the universe is so giving and listening all the time. All you have to do is allow yourself to just go, okay, God, like, this is what I'm doing.
Amen.
Help guide me, make me stronger, allow me to understand those things. And you know, a lot of people say like, oh, life's hard work. I'm like, good, because anything worth having should be hard work.
Yes.
When was the last time somebody just said to you, oh, you know, have this? Look, think about it. The day you were born, the day your mother gave birth to you, that was no easy feat for her. That was difficult, right? Because life begins with difficulty, because it's there to show you that it's worth having. So it's kind of like if you run a marathon, it's not easy, but it's rewarding. Yeah. Life is rewarding because it's not easy, and that's the beauty of it. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to do that. And if you have the humility and the vulnerability to submit yourself and go, okay, look, universe, help me, guide me. You know, like, you win. It fills your heart and soul, and that's what you need. Anyway, we're off on a tangent.
No, it's cool, man. I am so glad that, you know, it's just interesting, man. So I've always been a Christian, man. But you know, when I was in college and most of my 20s, I don't want to say I strayed away from God, but I just wasn't intentional about it. You know, you're in college, you're not really thinking about that. And then until last year, I really started deepening my relationship with God. And like you, I've been praying every day. I've been reading my Bible, and it gives you a lot of faith and purpose that I feel like a lot of men today lack, and just people in general lack, bro. Like
men in general, right? They don't fear anything. Yeah. And when you have nothing to fear, all the rules go out the window. You treat women like garbage. You treat kids like garbage. You treat society like garbage. You treat the group as a whole. All of us, you know, we all have the human race has a duty and obligation to take care of its vulnerable, its women, its weak. You know, all the people who are the vulnerable part. And as men, we have a due diligence, an obligation to be like, you know what we need to do? We need to do the best for our family, for our females, for our mothers, for our wives, for our girlfriends. Because at the end of the day, they are the only people. And I say this about women because I'm a big advocate for women's rights. Women are the only people out of humans who get to play the hand of God once in their life. They give birth to life. Right, and that's and I've seen it twice in my own eyes, and it's such a magical experience. It's something that you can't even. It's like you've just created life, right? Like, and it's a beautiful thing. But anyway, we're going off the tangent about other things.
No, man. I mean, first of all, I'm so glad that I'm on fire for God, man. Like lately, I've literally been like I'm going to church groups. I've been going to church. Like, I've really been focusing on strengthening my relationship with God. So I'm all about. And I believe I have a purpose to do this podcast to give honor to God and glorify Him. So I'm all about it. You know, once I started deepening my relationship with Him, it became clear to me my purpose is to serve and inspire humanity, however I can. Whether it's through this podcast, the work I do, the relationships I have, that's what my purpose is. And God gave me that purpose. So I'm glad that, like, you know, I'm glad that you're under. And you know, I like what you talked about with saying hard work. How not nothing worth having comes easy, because it reminded me of this Bible verse that I quickly wanted to share, and it's Romans 5 verse 3, and it says, not only that, but we also rejoice in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not put us to shame. So essentially, the more we suffer, the more our character becomes, and the stronger we get, and
the stronger you become. Dude, my name is Daniel, right? In the lion's den, right? So like, I get that, like, it speaks to me. And you know, there's a practical example of this I can give to real life people. So say people are not yet, you know, praying, or they're not yet have a communication with God, or whoever it may be. Because I don't judge. Like, if you want to have a communication with Allah, I get it. Like, that's what you want to do, because to you, that's how you communicate to God, right? We all, and this is funny. Everyone says to me like, oh, you pray, you know, your Bible bashing or something like that. I'm like, dude, you laughing at me praying, and I can guarantee, and I will bet any money, I'm not even a betting man, but I will bet you that when tragedy happens in your life, the first thing you do is get on your hands and knees and you pray to God. So don't tell me you don't pray. So everyone does, right? And it's so interesting. So here's a real life example of the hard work that life should be giving us, okay? When I live by the 10X rule by a guy called Grant Cardone, right? Grant Cardone's a great guy, very inspirational guy.
I'm familiar.
Yeah. And so Grant Cardone, and I kind of know him indirectly. He has a 10X rule. He said, so you overpromise and overdeliver. So somebody says to you, so there was a competition, right? Where somebody said to me, and it wasn't a competition. It was just an event. It was an event where a brand said to me, hey, if you upload at least one TikTok every day for a month, we'll put you in our roster, and then we will pay you to do some more gigs. So I was like, cool. Every day I did 10 videos for this company for 1 month, right? 10 videos every day. They were like, geez. I was like, yeah, I did that because it was hard work. It was painful. I just about did it, but it was so rewarding, because out of everyone who participated, who did more? Who was the one person that they turned around and was like, dude, like, not only did you do what we said, you did 10 times the amount. You are worth your salt. Yeah. And that is the difference. When you go the extra mile. So Jesus said, when the military asks you to carry their equipment for 1 mile, you carry it for 10 miles. Right? Overpromise, overdeliver, and your reward will be greater than you ever experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I love that. Under promise, over deliver, man. Yeah, man. And as God-fearing men, I do believe that we're put on earth to serve. I think service is a very important thing that often doesn't get talked about. And I think there's a lot to be gained by giving. You know, they say that, in the Bible it says it's better to give than receive. So I'm with you,
Yes.
man. I'm with you, man, and I'm
Yeah.
so glad you're a Bible. You're God fearing man. One thing I wanted to talk to you about, man, because
Yeah.
just like you have ADHD and I have ADHD, we tend
Wait,
to.
Ike, you on Instagram?
Yes, sir. Yeah, add me, man. It's Ike Inspiration. I'll put it in the. I'll put it on. I could tell you under the after this. Yeah.
Sure.
But yeah. Okay, but it's Ike Inspiration with an S. But I'll add it to you after this conversation. But one thing I wanted to ask you about, man, is like with I'm and I can already hear you. You seem to be having a lot going on in your life, like not in a bad way, like, hey, I have a book, hey, I have a YouTube channel, we didn't even talk about that, hey, you know, and I do brand sponsorship deals, like you have a lot of projects going on. I'm curious, how do you manage those projects and essentially your time? And you're a dad too.
I am, dude. Yeah. So I run. So what I do, so I have two kind of like main business models. I have the Ask Me World, and the Ask Me World is my social media influencing gig, which is like, you know, I put videos out and I monetize those videos, and then I sell educational courses for people and I coach people on those platforms. So like that's one business on its own, right? And I do brand deals and all that kind of stuff in that one. And then on the side, I've got TAW Media, which is the Ask Me World Media, so TAW Media. And what we do with TAW Media is I work with brands or businesses or companies or personal brands or whatever it is, and I show and I teach, usually on like a 3 to 6 month contract, how to organically grow social media content and drive traffic to a call to action link in your bio to lead generate you in a funnel system, so to give the user a value driven journey, so that you as a company benefit from the custom from that person, but that person 10 times benefits from the value you give them.
Yeah.
And so that's what I do. So how do I manage all of this?
Yes.
Not very well. No. I do. It's not easy, but again, anything worth having should be hard work, right? And so I have like this. I have like a notebook that I keep all my kind of like to-do lists in my pocket. I have an app called Trello. So this notebook kind of comes around me in my pocket, and then I have like a bigger notebook that I transpose all those things into. I have a work management tool called Trello, which I use.
What's that?
Free. Trello. It kind of like it organizes all of your work into kind of like columns. You can have cards, and inside the card you can load in data. Yeah. It's free. It's completely free. It's insanely good.
Yeah.
And then I use another app called Microsoft To Do, which is just a digital task manager for like a list building, like to-do list, right?
Oh my gosh. Dude.
And so all I do is I have all my thoughts and emotions and feelings written down in a little journal, right? And when I'm doing at night when I pray, I do my journaling as well. Then I any of the tasks in there, any of the things that I write in there that may be tasks or to-dos, I transpose them into a task list in my Microsoft To Do app, which is across all platforms, and it's free. And then those tasks become things like make a video on autism and drug abuse, right? So I then go into Trello and I make a card, then I put a thumbnail on it, and I write out all the description of the video, and I put all the pieces that I need to do it. And so that's how I manage all of my projects.
Yeah, dude, man, it's like I felt like I was just talking to myself, because like everything you're saying was like the same, not necessarily all the same apps, but I have a daily journal too that I write on every day. And then my task list isn't necessarily the Microsoft thing you're talking about, but I just go on Apple Notes, and every time I have it, I just do this, and I'll just write it down to do it later, because they say, you know, when you write something down, you're a lot likelier to do it. And then you mentioned Trello. I've never heard of Trello. Well, I've heard of it, but I wasn't familiar with it. But when you were describing it, I was thinking of, I have Google Calendar, and it's literally like how I put my time, and then I put it into columns, different colors, so I can know how to manage it. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
dude, I highly recommend checking out Trello, because like it's free. I mean, you can get like a paid version of it, but it makes no difference. Like to me, and like there's so many plugins that are free for it. It's so good. They're called power-ups, but it organizes so many things. I even use Trello for things like, say I got a personal project, like taking the kids on vacation. Like I'll do like a Trello board. Like What are the things we need to take? You can. I know so many businesses that use Trello to keep track of development, right? That's what I mean. It's like a work development tool, right? So to keep track of all the development, it's so dope. And so when I'm working with a client and they want to see progress or I want to keep everything in one place, I use Trello because it's a web-based platform, dude. And it's like you can load files into it, like. Dude, it's fire. Like I always like my 3 main go-tos. Always like Trello, Microsoft To Do, and a Notes app on my iPhone. Like like they're my all 2 go-tos. Because if I don't have like my like field notes book with me, I'll just use notes on my phone. But I know I just have some kind of notepad with me somewhere. Like.
Man, that's incredible, man. So I mean, dude, I mean, it's just, I'm not gonna lie, I did not come into this conversation expecting us to have so much in common. It's like crazy, dude. I really feel like I'm like talking to myself in like a different version. It's like, it's so weird, bro. But I love it, man. And so another thing I'm curious about for you is like, what's the, for you personally, what do you feel like is the worst part about having autism and ADHD for you?
Sure, the worst part of having autism, and I'll answer them separately, okay?
Okay.
The worst part of having autism is not knowing certain conventions of like the do's and don'ts of society. Like, somebody, so say my ex-girlfriend, she said, "Do I look fat in this dress?" I'm like, and if she did, I'd be like, "Yes." But apparently you're not allowed to be honest, right? So I have no filter, and that gets me in trouble. And then like I've met people who I think are really friendly with me, and then like, someone will say to me like, "Hey, they would be a total douche with you." I'm like, "Oh, what?" Like, and it kind of like, oh man. And so that is the worst part of autism, is that there's a vulnerability aspect to it where I'm just being as honest as possible, but I get such, like in the deep water with it. And then with ADHD, man, intrusive thoughts, and because it overlaps with OCD, right? So like I'm like, like you can have 1,000 spiraling out of control thoughts. I'm like, what is going on? Like, and everything is like the end. Like, it's like, like if I don't, like the ADHD part of me, like I want to do something, I can't do it, it's the end of the world. And they say I had to shake out that funk. I'm like, damn. So that is probably the most difficult part. It sucks, but again, Once I calm down from that, I go, okay, what did I learn from this? What is the universe trying to see? What's God showing me here? Like, like what's going on? And that's kind of like how I see it,
Yeah, man. I mean, that's so interesting for me because I can relate to the intrusiveness. And I just still do. I have this problem of overthinking. And you know how what that can lead to when you're just constantly thinking without actually engaging or doing something. And when you talk about intrusive thoughts, I can go into this like intrusive deep bout of just existential talks of like, what's the meaning of life? Like, why am I here? What's my purpose? Am I doing what am I supposed to be doing? And I have those conversations with myself all the time, man.
My G.
And it's great to really reflect on your life and really understand what you're here to do. But sometimes if you do it too much, it can become overbearing and you can really start to question and become sanity. And that's why I'm glad we have a relationship with God, because I had this problem of trying to understand everything, and I just can't. I'm a mere human being. It's impossible. I can't control everything. And so there's this thing, saying in the Bible that says, "A peace that passes all understanding," and that's something that I pray for. Because we can't understand everything, nor should we want to, because I think that would be too much for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what's funny? Like you said to me, you're like, what's the meaning of life? And it's funny, like I can give you a really good answer for that. For my first book, my first book was on theology. I studied a lot of different texts and put it together. And so the meaning of life is to give life meaning, right? It's self-fulfilling. Like it was written that way.
Oh, I like that. That's a good question. I'm gonna write that down. Sorry, the meaning of life is to give life meaning. I really like that. Okay,
and so like everything you do, like. And think about it like this, right? How do you start? And on the smallest scale, how do you give life meaning? Because a lot of people are like, oh, I have no place or purpose. No, you do. You already have a place in society that God has given you to do this, right? And this is how it works. Society we'll call the group, right? Yeah. And we all have a responsibility to do our best for, like, as a being of God, a creature of God, doing our best for that. And how I see it is this: in Matthew. In the book of Matthew, it said that the kingdom of God isn't within one man or a group of men. It's within all men, right?
Yes.
Well, that means that the responsibility of God's work or of reality, or our responsibility to give life meaning, is shared between all of us. So we all have to do our part. So no matter, so how do you start? You go outside and you be nice to somebody. You do kindness. You show gratitude. You show vulnerability to help somebody else. You practice humility. And those things allow you to then resonate higher, and you'll get a higher vibration. Communicate higher, right? So just go out and be a good person. Do a good deed. Be a man, for goodness sake. Be what you're supposed to be, and that is how you give life meaning. Not on the smallest scale.
Yeah, I like that. The meaning of life is to give life meaning. I love that. Yeah, I mean, I also think we're on this world to be the greatest versions of ourselves, and part of that is discovering who we are and then being that. And it's almost like what you're saying with the 10x rule. Like you want to amplify. If you have to overcome the problem of who am I, where am I, what am I supposed to be doing, what do I like a lot, and then once you do realize that, which I think usually comes once you get older, I think we have the next responsibility is to be that, like, as 10x as great as you can possibly be.
100%. Dude, like, it's funny what you say about problem solving, right? Like, people say, like, oh, I've got this problem and I don't know how to solve it, right? Well, I teach this literally on a daily basis. I was on another podcast today. I was talking about this. There's a very simple, there's a what we call the protocol, right? And this is what I call the protocol. The problem solving protocol is very simple. If you are aware of a problem, the only reason the problem exists is because a solution exists. That's how we know it's a problem. So we just say, hey, I've got this problem. How do I solve it? Okay, well, tell me what the complete opposite of the problem. What would be the complete opposite of the problem? That's your solution. We already have the answer given to us. Just like I said in the self-fulfilling prophecy, the meaning of life is to give life meaning. The answer to the problem is the opposite of the problem. And you only know the opposite of the problem because that's the only way you identify it as a problem. It's kind of like saying, how do I know the light's off? Well, because when the light is on, it's light, So how do I know it's a problem? Because the opposite is not this, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. So people realize they don't understand, actually, that they're problem-solving machines, that they already know how to problem solve. They just didn't realize they already know the solution to the problem. They just have to reverse what the problem is.
Yeah. So you're saying the answer is in the recognition of the problem, which is essentially.
Yeah, kind of like it. Let me give you a very basic example.
Okay.
It could become more abstract, if you're saying, oh, how do I bring someone back from the dead? That is not the way. That's not solving a problem. That's trying to cheat life, right?
Yeah.
But when this is the problem. If you're driving down the road and a log falls, like a tree falls, and there's a huge log in the road. Oh no, I have a problem. I can't get on my journey because there's a log in the way. Yeah. Okay, so what would be the solution? Okay, move the log. If the log wasn't there, or if there was a different road, there's going to be many solutions to that one problem.
Yeah,
we already know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No. You're right. Yeah, and I think some people might be thinking, oh, like, I don't know if it's that easy, but I love the simplicity in the thinking, because sometimes I do feel like we overcomplicate a lot of things. You know what I'm saying?
And the reason.
Yeah.
Sorry, man. You know the reason why people don't do it? Because say that there's many variables to that scenario I gave you. One of them is, hey, ditch the car and walk for I don't know, however long you need to get to your destination, right? Or call an Uber and leave the car outside the road, call an Uber. That's scary for people because people are too afraid to take that leap. Do you know what I say to that? Be afraid and do it anyway, because that is life, dude. And so if you're not taking risks in life, dude, do you know what you're doing? You're standing still. Let me give you a scenario. How do I know I'm moving in the right direction? I'm constantly coming across problems, because if you are traveling in a straight line going forward, you're going to come across problems. By having a problem, it means you're moving in the right direction, because what's the opposite? If you stood still, you're not moving anywhere.
Yeah.
And then that's a problem. And there's a really great I don't know if you've read anything on Buddhism, because Buddhism is not really like
I have.
It's an applied life philosophy. And one of the most amazing things that the Buddha once said is, the Buddha said, a man who has 10 friends has 10 problems. And that was it, right? And this is called a riddle. Buddha had loads of riddles. Sometimes he had koans, which are really interesting, but make you think about yourself. But this is what this meant. It took me about 10 years to figure this one out. I was like, a guy has 10 friends, has 10 problems. I'm like, yeah. But then I reversed it, right? I always do. I say, okay, well, a guy who has no friends has no problems. Okay. Yeah. But what is a life like without friends? So we have to take the good with the bad. That's what he said. A guy who has 10 friends has 10 problems. Okay, good. Because I'll take the good with the bad. I'll take 10 problems if I get 10 friends to help me out.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. Sorry,
when I was younger, boss, I used to, I think a lot of people had this conception that, oh, one day, like, I'll just have everything figured out. Like, you know, I thought that was possible. Like, you know, when you're 12, 13, you look at your parents, you're like, oh, they have it all figured out. I'm going to be there one day. And I'm almost 30 now. And I was like, okay, when I have 30, I'm going to have life figured out. I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to be balling. I am far from that. I hope to be, and I will be one day. But I started to realize, like, you're always going to have problems. The question is, what kind of problems do you want to have? And I started to realize, like, for example, I'm a real estate investor and I own a couple properties. And I was like, okay, I want to own a property. I want to be a real estate investor. And once it's like, be careful what you ask for, because now that I got my first property, now the next problem is, okay, now I have tenants, dealing with them, managing them, and you know, and there's always going to be problems. Then once you evict them out, now my next problem is, okay, I got to find a new tenant. And that's just an example within a specific niche and a thing where you know, we always have problems. But even with you, you know, or just becoming a parent or dating, I feel like, you know, you're my first problem. I'm looking for a girlfriend. Then you get a girlfriend, and you know how problematic that could be to an extent. That, you know, not to offend, but you know, he's like, okay, well, there's always gonna be problems, boss. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's like, it doesn't, and it's good because you got to think of it like this. I got a new problem. Yes, I'm moving in the right direction. Yeah. And I'll give you a really good example. Okay. Oh, I want a girlfriend. I'm sat at my desk. I want a girlfriend or I want a wife, right? Okay, cool. Oh, if you just sit down and wish it, never going to happen. Yeah. But then you have no problems, but you don't have the success you want, right? Which is a wife. Okay, first thing I need to do, I need to go to the club. Or, you know, I need to go to a speed dating group. Okay, what's my first thing? I don't have an outfit. I need to buy an outfit, but I don't have any money. I gotta make some money. First problem, great. I'm moving in the right direction. This is what I mean. Like everything you do in life, the motion of moving through space is going to cause problems, and that is good because it means that you're actually moving, dude.
Yeah. And I think once you actually recognize problems as not just something bad that burdens you, but more as like you're growing, I think that's really where problems become more appreciated, because I've been looking at it like that. And I think the more problems you encounter and the more different type of problems you can solve, the greater your evolution is, you know.
100%,
and I think we're all placed in this world to evolve, and like I said, be the greatest version of yourself. And it's so interesting now, like problems that I come across that my younger self would have had, it's so much easier for me. You know, I starting a business, knowing how to sell, knowing how to communicate. I was never just good of a communicator or being able to speak. I was a very shy person when I was young for several reasons. I was never just communicative or confident, you know, but that was a problem that's overcome. And, you know, and it's interesting, you know, as you grow, a lot of things happen.
This is my saying, and I say this to everybody: practice makes progress. Never perfect. There's no such thing as perfection. I don't know if you're aware of this, but if you reach the state of perfection, what would be the only place you could go from there? Downward, right? And so practice makes progress, not perfection. Nobody can ever get perfect, but we can get as close to it as possible. And you know what's this is another thing. A friend of mine, sadly, I just put out, if you went on any of my socials today, you'll notice I put out a GoFundMe for a friend of mine. She has no friends here. I'm in Canada right now. She has no friends in Ontario. She lives just outside of Toronto, and her and her husband lived there. And they were from Brazil. They were here, and she was friends with my girlfriend, so she only through work, like she only knows it through work. She didn't didn't grow up together. So she said, hey, can you? My husband's going to hospital. I don't know what to do because he was suffering with leukemia. So we drive to the hospital, right? And then, you know, bless him. Unfortunately, he gave up the fight and he lost his life. And we were the only people there with her at that time. And she has no family here, right? And so I was like, thank goodness we were there to help her. But you know what she said to me? She said, thank you for being here on the worst day of my life. And I said to her, hey, you're more than welcome, but I'll tell you something about the worst day of your life. If this is the worst day of your life, it is a good thing, because every day from now on is going to be better than the worst day of your life. Right? So it's like, and it's true. If you've ever reached the worst day of your life, that's a good thing, because now every day is going to be better. Right? As hard and as harsh as that is.
It's true.
That's true. I got a book recommendation for you specifically.
Please.
This is called You Are a Badass at Making Money. Okay. And this is a woman. She's a powerhouse. And she is. I think she's like an African American kind of like a what do they call it? Inspirational speaker as well. Okay. But she is a woman of God. But she mixes in how you mix faith or the practice of faith with mindset to create wealth in your life. Dude, this book is going to change your life. If you want to be a millionaire, follow this to the T.
Thank you, man. I'm gonna after this conversation, I'm gonna have it on. And if she's as interesting as you're making her sound, I may even have her on the podcast. That I love it, man. Before I think like 2 podcasts ago, I had this guy named Alex Filipino on, and he is the creator of Podmatch. It's pretty much a platform that connects podcasters. It's almost like Tinder, but for like podcasts. Okay. And he was actually talking about entrepreneurship and spirituality, and how there's actually a lot combined, a lot of it combined. And we don't talk about it a lot, but I do think about it. About it.
I'm telling you now, dude, every single entrepreneur that I know who is a multi-millionaire or billionaire, and I know quite a few of them, right? They all have one thing in common.
What?
They have a faith, and they never skip on faith. They communicate to the universe or God, Allah, Buddha, Jehovah, whoever you want to call it, right? Makes no difference. It's still God. And they communicate to God every single day, and they are successful. When you realize that the universe is giving as you want it to be, all you have to do is ask for guidance.
Yeah.
God will grant it to you. He's waiting for you. The God is sitting there going, speak to me. My children, speak to me. All you need is me to say, oh, I need this. I need a signal. I need a sign to tell me that I'm on the right path. Just anything, right? Just and it doesn't matter if it's difficult or if it's easy. I just need a sign, and you'll see it. You'll know as clear as day the sign, and it's like God's like, boom, there you go.
Yeah,
and you know it, and he's just waiting for you. That's what he wants.
Well, I could tell you have a strong relationship with God, and I feel like I think there's this quote. I think it's James 4:8. It says, "Draw near to God, and God will draw near to you." And I feel like if you don't have that relationship, this might sound superficial. This might sound woo-woo, or you might not be able to understand it. And so I'm curious, man. Like, where did your faith and the strength to just really and your passion for Him come from? Because not everyone has that. And some do want that.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I grew up. My parents, they're not atheists. I mean, they're both like Church of England kind of like, because I grew up in the UK, in England and Wales. But my dad is a martial artist. He's invented his own style of Japanese karate called Yamashima. Even though my dad is mixed race, but he's not. There's no ounce of Japanese in him. But he has 7 black belts in karate, and so I grew up in this house that was kind of all about like the energy and being thankful and like really having gratitude for everything, being gratitude for the food we had on our plate. My dad didn't make us say grace, but he was like, are you lucky that you have food on your plate and your mother is able to create that food for you? I'm like, yeah, God, yeah. I'm like super. And so they never pushed us towards any religion. And I went to a Christian school. I went to a really bleak high school, but I went to a Christian primary school, bleak high school. And then, when I was starting my business, I felt like I was on this mission, right? That I was put here to help people. Then I was like, it's a mission from what is that, right? What is it? And so I do like a spiritual counseling, and and I did this because I wanted to learn more about myself, right? And I thought, look, I understand that I'm a sentient being, right? I'm a soul, and I want to learn more about that. So I started doing spiritual counseling with a counselor, and one of the things they said is they were a bishop. They were my counselor was a bishop, and they said we teach you all about life and skills of it. And I said and right at the end they have different kind of like scales of things they tell you, and the 8th thing they tell you, and they call it the God dynamic, right? That's what they call it, and they say it's like this, like the infinity symbol, right?
Wow.
Over here, and they said that is everything that caused existence, right? That is the creator, the intellectual being that created everything, and this is up to you to decide how you find that path to God, right? So I call it God. I've read the Bible. I've also read the Quran. I've also read the Torah, because all these books are very similar.
Yes,
all these people had the same experience. Gabriel came to all of them. And they explain it as being Gabriel coming to them in a vision. But these are all Abrahamic religions, right? And they all came from that source. Abraham and Isaac, the whole story. There's much to be thought there. There's much food for thought there. So that's how I came into it, because I was like, dang, I had the spirit. And you know what it was? As soon as I tell you this, dude, like when I was having the spiritual counseling, as soon as I allowed myself to have a communication with that God dynamic, right, that eight kind of like complex, I was like, whoa, like you just let in like love and purpose into your life like you've never felt before. I'm like, gee, like I'm on it, like I'm here for a reason. I will do that. Like you said, it's about service, right? I will do this. Yes. I will help people. Yes. I will be that person, you know. And for instance, I used to be a person who'd be like, oh, you know, the government should give us everything, and you know, we should have more benefits. I was way more liberal. And then I was like, dude, actually, if I want to actually work hard for it, right? Like, nobody gives me anything. My mum worked hard to give me life. Yeah. And so I should work hard to maintain that life. And I always say this, and I have to go soon, but I'm going to give you something really amazing to take away, right? So every night I do a gratitude list, right? Yeah. And this is how I do it, right? And a lot of people forget this. There's two parts to a gratitude list. Nobody tells you about. So on this side, I say things I'm grateful for, like my partner, my girlfriend, she's amazing. My children, God bless them, they're the light of my life. My job. The food I have in my fridge, the car I drive, and I drive a Tesla, bro. It's a great car. The friends that I keep close to me, the ability to share stories, the air I breathe every single day, and then so they're the things I'm grateful for. Okay, right. And on the second side, this is what everyone forgets, and this is what truly makes the difference between gratitude and just doing it for fun. Because a lot of people just write a gratitude list, and that's okay, but this is the key. I say, how am I going to keep these things in my life? My girlfriend, I'm going to be the best partner I possibly can, and I will serve and protect her until my last breath. My children, I will be them.
And I love what you shared, because I think we always hear about the gratitude journal, but we never actually hear about that second half of it that pretty much makes us not take things for granted on another level. So man, I'm so grateful for your time, Daniel. It's been a great pleasure speaking with you. We're definitely going to reconnect. I'm going to add you on Instagram. And for people who are interested in speaking with you, conversing with you, or connecting with you, how could they do that?
Oh, perfect. So you can get me on any social media platform at the Aspie World. So it's TheAspieWorld. But you can also email me, dan@theaspieworld.com. And I email everybody back. There's no kind of like behind the curtain. You know, I've got like 600,000 followers, but that doesn't make any difference. If you email me and ask me a question, I'll email you back. I'm gonna send me your cell phone number. I'll get you got WhatsApp?
Yeah. I'm about to end this podcast. Okay, give me a second. We'll end it. But all right. But this has been great. I appreciate you so much, Daniel. Remember, the future belongs to the beauty. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Thank you, everyone.
Peace.
All right. If you enjoyed this conversation, feel free to write me a review on Apple or Spotify and subscribe for more content. I'm on a mission to inspire as many people as I can, and your reviews will help me reach a wider audience. Thank you.